Hey everybody. Hey, it's Deborah, and I am going live. As soon as I see there's one other person on, I will start talking. I'm going to dive right in because I'm actually not here for very long today, and I'm dropping things right and left. So I also have water close by because it's about triple digits and in the teens. All right, so somebody else is here, so thanks for joining me. This is very impromptu, very spontaneous, but I have so many questions we've collected from different groups. So from our insiders group, if you're in there, that's the Flipping 50 insiders group for podcast listeners, for Flipping 50 TV episode viewers, my YouTube channel viewers. I mean, great place for you to go and get community with like-minded individuals. Ask us questions. So me and our coaches will answer. And if you're already in a program, your program is the best place for you to be asking questions. We don't actually want to answer program questions in there. This is for people who don't have any support yet and don't know which direction to go, but want some support. But I'm going to dive right in because I've really only got about 24 minutes now, so I'm going to sprint through this. But the biggest thing I want to draw your attention to right now, well, two, so I'm going to do a shameless little plug. This weekend is the last weekend that the Hot Not Bothered 10-day challenge is open, so it's $49. It starts officially on September 1st, goes to the 10th, and yes, there is a holiday in there if you're in the United States. It's a 3-day weekend. Sometimes that makes it easier. I don't know about you. It makes it lots easier for me to have a little more bandwidth to do what I want to do. But if you get started right now, the sooner you're in, the sooner you get access to the videos, the bonus videos on mobility and how to do exercises, and those all disappear. So if you don't get in now, you don't actually get those with the program. So I'll put the link later in the show notes, but I want to dive into this because it's circulating again. This was 2 weeks ago, actually 2 weeks ago, literally right now. This was a new study was published in or written about in the New York Times. And basically the studies showed that metabolism and everything we know about it is false, right? So that was the big media headline that gets everybody to look and say, what, right? Because we want to know those things. So that's the kind of headlines that gets results. But what they found is that after studying, a longitudinal study and a lot of subjects, that metabolism doesn't actually slow down until about 60. So it holds pretty steady from 20 to 60. So the question is, what do you think about that? I had so many Flipping 50 fitness specialists. That means fitness professionals and health coaches who've gone through my certification course to be a specialist. They were like, what do you think about this? And I said, I think you should leverage the you-know-what out of it because it points to habits. Habits are everything. So it's exactly the content that was really came to light from my TEDx talk. So everything that women learned about exercise may be alive, women in menopause, because for 30 or 40 years we've been following programs that are based on research on mice and on men and on young women, and young women the least, because still young girls having a period, every month and cycling in and out of different hormones. Although it's predictable, researchers don't love to do studies on us because of that volatility and that every woman's cycle is slightly different. We can't guarantee that on day 14 X is happening. So they prefer men. They prefer young men at the peak of muscle mass. And we're not anything like men, young men, at the peak of muscle mass as far as our hormone profile go. Because that's true, what affects and impacts our metabolism and our body composition is also very different. Those things are so very important. So here's what I want to point out. So the study showing metabolism stays relatively stable from 20 until close to 60, and yet women gain weight, right? So that's the head scratcher. It's like, well, wait a minute, we're still gaining weight. We gain weight in midlife, so explain that, because that's what we care about, right? What are you going to do for me right now? Fix this. All right. It echoes, though, the same point that was made with an ACOG, that's American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology, in 2019, which isn't all that long ago, given we kind of lost a year last year, right? So research progressed, but things changed things, right? So in 2019, a study showed, and 1 million women in menopause were studied. We love those kinds of studies. Huge, vast, but us specifically and longitudinal, again, over time. Not just saying 4 weeks. No. This is long term. There was no correlation between menopause and weight gain. So again, now we've got another wake-up call. Something's going like, hey, pay attention. Pay attention, right? Are you listening? So here's the deal. What we know, even though we know, yes, a lot of women gain weight during menopause, but here's what I also know. This is what women will say to me more often than not. And I don't want you to feel badly. That is not my goal by saying this, if this is something you've said. But the answer is in the question or the statement. And that is something like, I've been exercising my whole life, and all of a sudden what I'm doing doesn't work. And that statement is so very eye-opening. You don't have the same hormones that you had when you were 20 or 30 or 40, and you may not, if you're right there in menopause in that volatile stage, have the same hormones that you had 6 months ago or a year or 2 years ago. So it changes that much. What we don't know or we didn't know until very recently. I didn't know until probably 8 or 9 years ago when I started digging into all of the research on women in menopause, that there was very little research out there on us in the first place. It's getting better, but it's slow. It's going to be slow. And that no woman knew ever to ask, is that program, or to my personal trainer, is the workout that you have planned for me today based on women in menopause successfully having the results that I want, being in the status that I want? No woman knew to ask that. I was a trainer who trained trainers. I was a university lecturer who helped for 16 years fitness professionals or want-to-be's. That was their major. Kinesiology, exercise physiology. They were either pre-med, they were pre-PT, or they wanted to be, and by that, physical therapists, or they wanted to be personal trainers, studio owners, fitness managers. And I didn't know. I was doing it wrong too, because we only do as well as we can with the knowledge we have at the time, right? But what we have to do here is, here's the problem. Women who run social media accounts with menopause followers, so it might be menopause health coach, it might be menopause this or that, they're asking the question and they're stating, that it doesn't make sense. People who've exercised for years are still gaining weight seemingly overnight. That makes total sense, because you're trying to get the same result or different results from the same exercise. And it's like looking at Biden now being, I don't want to go political on you, and we won't, but it's like Biden coming into office, right, versus Trump in office. I mean, the policies and the politics that were in place when Trump was here are no longer here. They're not going to work. Everything is different. Everything is turned around. So it is with you and your hormones. There is a different cabinet in office right now, and you better work with that cabinet if you want to get some policy passed here. And that policy being, you want your energy back, you want your brain fog gone, you want to focus better, and you want to do better. You've got to change the way you're doing. We have to change some rules, change some laws, and get some better things in place. So likewise, you have a different hormone profile. So if you keep doing the same thing you've always done, you're going to get very different results. In fact, you're going to get worse and worse and worse. So we've got to change it. So for your current hormone status, the thing that used to work could be exercising too much. That if you do what you did right now, it may be too much exercise for you. It may be that you're moving too little. It may be that you're exercising too intensely too often. It may be that you're exercising without any intensity and you're following that moderate exercise that was born in the 80s and the 90s and has been replaced by science that is very different than that. We need moderate amounts of high and low exercise. We don't actually need that middle zone. That middle zone of exercise really doesn't help anybody. What helps you most is going from low to moderate, getting off the couch and doing something, and then what helps you very most after you've done that is going to vigorous, moderate to vigorous exercise. So important that you know that, and important that you realize you have lost estrogen. So the difference in the study, when they looked at what's the difference between men and women, when they accounted for muscle mass and fat loss, fat mass, there was no difference between men and women, and that's exactly right. So here's what happens, that you, unlike men, you lose estrogen, and estrogen is like your insurance policy for muscle. It stimulates muscle. It helps you hold on to it, and it helps you gain muscle if you're doing the right things to gain it. It's not going to help you gain it overnight if you're on vacation and eating bonbons. But if you're lifting weights, you're exercising appropriately, you're going to gain lean muscle thanks to estrogen. But after you lose that, you're sitting on a 3-legged stool and you lost a leg. You have to pick up some slack and lift weights with greater intensity than you ever have before in your life. You need that. Now, we also know we've probably had some injuries before this point in our life. We've had a good ride so far, and we're planning to ride some more. And in doing that, we've got a little bit more wear and tear. Our joints, our ligaments, our muscles are not quite as resilient. So yes, you need intensity, slowly ramping up what we call progression. We can't just jump right in. We can't just jump right into high intensity interval training that is 20 seconds hard and 10 seconds easy, because there is zero progression in that. Everyone in the fitness industry has gone a little crazy over the last 10 years when it comes to interval training. But that's not how we start. We start with the opposite, 10 seconds of hard and maybe 20 seconds of rest. So we're doing less work, more recovery. Or if we were talking in terms of minutes, maybe it would be 30 seconds hard and a minute or minute and a half of recovery. That's appropriate for a beginner. Then we get to one-on-one. Maybe it's a minute and a minute, or 30 seconds and 30 seconds. And then when we finally get to the point where we can work hard for maybe a minute and then recover just for 30 seconds, that's a progression. That's weeks. That's maybe 2 months. And for some reason, we've forgotten those things. But we need to do the same thing with our strength training. So with strength training, you start with a higher repetition range, a lower weight then, but still reaching somewhat close to muscle fatigue, but one set. You do that for maybe two workouts for a week if you're doing fine. Maybe that second week you leave the weight the same, you leave the reps the same, but you do 2 sets. The third week, maybe you begin gradually increasing the weight and see how you do. Can you do more and reach fatigue at that same number? So likewise, over a period of months, it can take 2 months to get up to a level where your joints and your ligaments are safe. Now we've got a good solid foundation, and if you get to the point where, I think I've gone to the edge, and if I go any further, I feel vulnerable, I'm going to get hurt, you can stop before you get there. You don't have to go all the way there. So super important. So if you think that exercising more, doing more of what's not working, if you've gained weight, you're going to try to do more of what's not working, and you're going to try to exercise or eat less, that's going to backfire on you, because more exercise is more stress. Less food is more stress. You're doing both of them at the same time, even more stress, because they're polar opposites. It's like a foot on the gas, a foot on the brake. And if you're doing that, when you do anything that creates stress, like you bounce a check, stressful when the bank calls. You've got to explain that, right? And or your spouse wants to know, how did that happen, honey? Right? That is not comfortable. And everything that's emotional, financial in your life that's important to you, immunity, right? All the things that are pandemic related, all stressors, cause the rise of cortisol, cause you to need to find something to let that cortisol down. And that's quite often eating more, resting, recovering more, exercising less. Another reason the 10-day Hot Now Bother Challenge may be appropriate for you if you're not getting results doing what you're doing. And I guarantee you, if you're somebody who exercises frequently and often and you love it and you love to work, I get you. I am you. However, learning to rest and recover will feel better. So, the next piece, okay? So some of you are following programs, not necessarily flipping 50 programs, but you're tweaking them. Like you're adding extra. You're doing a little extra, like I'm gonna do this because then I can kind of get ahead. And that's a certain personality type, it's a certain mentality, but I wanna use these terms that I use in our programs, and that is a proven program tweaked is no longer proven. So if you're following something that's scientific based and it's been proven to work in studies and research, it ain't proven anymore. It's not going to work if you've tweaked it. You're adding something that wasn't there, or you took something out. You didn't do it. You skipped a day. That also won't work. So I want to remind you that if you invest your time, your energy, and or your money in a program, make it enough to hurt, to pay attention, to follow it, to feel like it would be ridiculous. One of my clients, it's probably been 6 months now, gave me the greatest quote as probably one of the best testimonials. I mean, she really turned a corner. One week we were working together and I said, what was different about this week? I mean, what was that big pivot? What was the reason for it? She said, well, I realized I pay you well. I pay you a lot of money to coach me. It would be really ridiculous of me not to take that advice and follow it. And I said, okay, counselor, check. You're right? And absolutely right. But sometimes you have to be in that position because, if you're trying to follow a free program, that probably doesn't work very well because there's nothing there. There's no urgency. Okay. So here's the fastest way, if you're not getting progress, because I know how frustrating that can be. You're a woman in midlife and you are doing all the things. Something I said already today hopefully resonated with you, and by no means do I mean to, intend to be, or want to be condescending, and I'm very antenna up about that. But I also want to be blunt and be the one who makes you aware that you're in there, potentially you've got a limited belief because you've been taught it for 30 or 40 years, and you're probably going to hold on to that limited belief for a while. I need to remind you over and over again, but I also want to make sure that if you're not getting results, that instead of quitting or thinking this doesn't really matter, why should I eat really well when it doesn't change the scale at all, or it doesn't change anything at all, or why should I follow this program and make this effort? Well, overall, first of all, I want to argue that you are healthier. You're going to be healthier long term no matter what is happening to your scale. But there are things you should look for. And if you're, you've been doing this for 8 or 10 or 12 weeks and you've not seen positive changes, and I mean all the breadcrumbs, so you've got to really look, not the scale. Please don't give the scale your power. Don't let the scale decide you're not there, right? So it may be they're sleeping better, maybe that you have less cravings, fewer cravings. You are not hungry all the time, you're satisfied, you're sleeping better, you're waking up, your libido is better, you have more constant energy and more constant focus. You're not losing it and can't focus or having anxiety and depression. Those are all signs that you're making some progress going the right direction. But here are the fastest ways to make sure that you get everything you need as a woman in midlife and menopause if you're not getting results. So yes, first of all, test. So listen and watch. Your next step might be to make another change, like one step at a time. Do less exercise. Begin to add a little bit more protein every day to your diet. take another day off between weight training workouts. Any of those are great ideas, but do one, not all of them, because you want to be able to point to, this affected me positively. This affected me this way. And you'll know it, because if you try 27 things at a time, you won't know which one of them was that worked for you. But here are other ways that you need to kind of go through this as a checklist. You want to make sure you're eating enough. Biggest error, most frequent, is for women who were working with me at midlife, making progress, really good progress, and then would plateau. The answer was almost always that they had cut back on calories or continued to be dieting while they were making this progress. But you can't create a more active and lean body with more muscle mass and continue to feed it what a more sedentary body survived on, because you've got to feed a body to have a body burn, right? The less you feed a body, the less it's going to burn. It's going to tell you you're tired. Conserve energy. And you'll feel like, I don't want to get off the couch, I don't want to go for a walk, I don't have any energy. Well, eat, okay? That's a good one. Eat more protein. Make sure that you're eating good quality foods, right? And you could be eating too much fat. That could be a problem. Too little or too many carbs. So carbs equal energy, and carbs also are required to help you with lean muscle mass. But it needs to be the right carbs at the right time. Not in the morning, maybe a little bit at lunch, but more in the evening to help you get to sleep. That has helped probably 90% of the women who've gone through Flipping 50 programs in the last 8 years, because you're in a better mood. You have better poop because your fiber is in your carbohydrates, your sweet potatoes, your quinoa, your beans, your legumes, your rice, your butternut squashes. And if you're just cutting those things out, you're going keto, you're probably constipated. That's not good, because you're holding on to toxins in that intestinal area, and they're reabsorbed the longer they sit there. That's not good. We got to get it out. Extra estrogens also. Getting enough sleep. So remember this, that 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. is much better than 12 or midnight to 8 a.m. Same 8 hours, right? But it does matter. So the clock and the time that you go to bed and get up matters a little bit. Exercise regularly, but not obsessively. If you're constantly exercising, you're like, you have to do it, can't think about going a day without, that's going to be problematic for you. Strength training to muscular fatigue. Make sure that every time you set those weights down, it's because you earned it. You were at muscular fatigue. It takes that kind of overload. That's the stimulus that replaces estrogen that was stimulating muscle. Make sure you're hydrated. So tons and tons of water. When it's 111 or 12, more water, more. Half your body weight in pounds, half of that at least. When it's hotter, you're sweating more. Supplement so you're not deficient in micronutrients. But here would be my recommendation. There's some basics that I can tell you that we're almost all deficient in. Basics for immunity. And not ironically, they're very similar, right? Vitamin D, magnesium, omega-3s. So vitamin D is crucial for metabolism and for energy, fast twitch muscle fiber, which is going to stimulate metabolism. Your omega-3s decrease inflammation. If you've got internal inflammation, that's going to get in your way. Magnesium, probably 80 to 90% of us are deficient. So if you've got frequent headaches, you can't sleep, that would be my very first suggestion. Those of you who are constipated, it doesn't replace fiber and sweet potatoes and the need to get carbohydrates in, but having magnesium of a certain kind can be very helpful. So I'm going to come back and talk a little bit more about fat burning, because this is another myth that is going around with some female bodybuilders who are teaching fitness programs for midlife women, teaching you to do low intensity cardio for long periods of time to be in the fat burning zone, and that is a no and a no and a no. The longer you exercise in a low, slow, steady state, the more you are going to increase your cortisol level, making your body store fat. And visceral belly fat, which is what we almost all complain about, actually responds best optimally to high intensity interval training. So if you're not in adrenal fatigue or dysfunction, it is the most appropriate way to spend any cardio time that you have. Okay, gotta jump off. I have a client calling in. I hope that was helpful. I will put the link down a little bit later to the Hot No Bother Challenge. So don't miss it. We've got close to 200 already in. So if you're wanting to kick off your fall, not knowing what to do, what you're doing right now is not working, that's a great start. So it's $49. If you want to take a next step after that, you get that $49 to use. So there you go. All right, there we go. That's my call. I gotta go. Bye-bye. Hello.